think one thing that the NBA realizes that a lot of the attention is focused on social during a game. Mm-hmm. You have maybe 10 million people tuning into a game, but then you have another, 10, 20 million people in the conversation on Twitter, on Instagram. So there has to be a strategy around monetizing those eyeballs as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's teams at the NBA that are really looking into how to best do this in a way that's not disruptive and that can continue just sharing the game with the world, because the NBA is such an international game.
Yeah.
It's so easy to hop on an app from anywhere in the world and have the NBA and NBA content right in front of you. So I think that's something that people at the NBA really are trying to achieve and keep in mind when making decisions. That being said, I think as we move forward, you're going to see a lot more focus on content being pushed to these social channels, YouTube included,
mm-hmm.
that kind of share the game. Because if you're an NBA fan, you can probably hop onto YouTube within, maybe an hour after a game or less, and just find tons of content for the game that just happened.
Right.
As well as going to the traditional digital channels, which I think people are less likely to do, especially moving forward. I think people are more comfortable looking on social. I think Facebook presents a great opportunity for this as well,
right,
as teams already have their official pages there. So I think we could look to see more going on those channels.
Yeah. So a couple things on that. One is, not just Twitter, but what I get a lot of my NBA updates now. I'm not the biggest NBA fan, but I do still keep track of what's going on in the league, and pretty much I get 90% of my updates from Instagram, basketball accounts or sports accounts that kind of just post the highlights from the games, post, when there's a fight in the league, or if there's some kind of controversy, they have it, and then they have opinions on it, and then people are talking about it in the comments. It's a really good way to get the news, get the highlights. It's interesting to see how SportsCenter kind of isn't really a thing anymore. They've almost, they've gotten rid of the traditional SportsCenter show. They have that Get Up show now in the morning. Because I think part of that is because they realize all these people are going to Instagram and social for their highlights and updates, and they needed to adopt a format where they're adding more value than just showing the highlights. They're actually now providing a lot more commentary on what has gone on. So it's interesting to see that changing at such a very high level. Something that SportsCenter's been around forever, since we were very young.
Right, and the NBA just lends itself to the opportunity to do this. I'm sure you've heard this before, where the players are just, you can see their faces, they're not in helmets, they're not ready, right? So they're not in hats. So you can create these storylines and build these personal connections with specific players, and the NBA just lends itself to creating more stars, and I think we're taking advantage of that in the best way possible, especially on social.
Yeah.
So I think it's in a good position right now. I think there's probably going to be a point where you got to really figure out how to monetize all this chatter on social. But I think there's also, you got to balance out how well the game is being spread. And I think it's undoubtedly, even if it's not being monetized, if there's constant chatter and just awareness about the league throughout the world, you can't say that's a bad thing, even if there's no direct revenue coming in from those conversations and that content.
Right.
It's just going to drive more awareness about the league and excitement.
Right. Well, attention is a major asset nowadays. If you can captivate somebody's attention, there's pretty much always the opportunity, whether in the long or short run, to kind of monetize that attention. So I'm sure that the NBA, being the successful organization that it is, will find a way to take advantage of this, and I'm sure a lot of other people will find a way to take advantage of it as well. But it's an interesting opportunity, and I think it's going to be a huge opportunity for growth, not just for the NBA, but for the sports industry in general, and then I think just the economy in general, because the amount of opportunity that can be created from those types of things, with all these new streaming sites happening now, right? I know you've worked with some of the streams, Ethan, and I know not just the NBA, but lots of sports organizations now are providing tons of different ways for their fans to watch. So not only can you watch different highlights and different documentaries and stories and all over social media, but you can also just watch the game itself through different streaming apps, different streaming services. There's just so much opportunity now and so many different eyes in so many different places. I think it's only a matter of time before this industry really takes off, and when it does, I think it's going to add major value to the economy in general and the sports industry in general.
Right. And digital media and live streaming, I don't think it's replaced traditional television yet.
Not yet.
I think it has the potential to start moving, and I think what's going to happen eventually is you're going to have something like a Roku or an Apple TV, and you're just going to pay for whatever apps you want to download. If you want to download the HBO app and have unlimited HBO, you get that. And there's no point in the traditional cable. I think that's where we're kind of headed.
Yeah.
For now, I don't think there's anything that's going to happen because these cable companies just have so much leverage over all this, so they don't want it to go away anytime soon until they figure that out. But yeah, I think any business can learn from the way sports monetize their social content. It's all, when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, it's all about storytelling, right?
Yeah.
So the NBA does a great job where every matchup last night was the Toronto Raptors versus Golden State Warriors. It was a great game, and I think leading up to that matchup, it's a story. It's is this going to be the finals preview? Is this can the Warriors beat the Raptors without some of their best players? There's just stories coming up to this. There's Drake on the sideline, right?
Yeah.
Banter with Kevin Durant on the Warriors the whole game. They're all stories, and it's just human interest stories too that create a lot of buzz around it and excitement. And I think any brand can learn how to capture this and use that to their advantage. So it's pretty cool to use sports as an analogy to this, but it's definitely something to look for because NBA and sports have seen great success on social.
Yeah.